So why no videos from me yet on YouTube in 2022, except for this one? Well, in this video, I'll explain all. So the start of my year was a bit of a break, which was for the most of January. And then when I got back to work in February time, I was hit by a ton of work. Most of it's related to new teaching I have to prepare, which means I have to make a whole load of new teaching videos, and I have to do that in a short space of time. I have to prepare new teaching because our undergraduate psychology degree has changed. There's nothing much unusual about that. Universities go through periods of renewal. That seems to be happening with increasing frequency these days. What they do is they bring in new policies and practices that they think will make teaching programs better and more relevant, and this means courses need to change to align with those new institutional policies. But the psychology degree I teach on, it's not just changing because the university wants us to do things in a slightly different way. It's also because the external body that accredits psychology degrees here in Australia, called APAC, Australian Psychology Accreditation Council, wants us to make some changes to how we teach undergraduate psychology. They've decided that psychologists need training in qualitative research. And that means that qualitative research training has to be built into the core of our psychology degree. I think this is fabulous. But psychology in Australia has come pretty late to the game here. In the UK, qualitative research became a requirement in the training of psychologists some 20 years ago, when it became written into the accreditation requirements issued by the British Psychological Society and the broader Quality Assessment Agency. Here in Australia, it only became a requirement since 2019, when APAC renewed its accreditation standards. And because programs are accredited every 5 years, it's going to take another couple of years until this impacts all accredited university psychology training in Australia. Now, previously, I'd been teaching an elective in qualitative research methods. So an elective is just a unit that students can choose to do, but they don't have to do it. Now, you may have seen the videos for that unit posted up on this channel in the playlist with that weird code, PSYC 13024. Well, that unit is no more. It's been discontinued. I'll keep the videos up on the channel, but that teaching has been discontinued by my university. Instead, I'm now teaching qualitative methods in the core units of our psychology degree. And I think that's brilliant news. As far as I'm concerned, that's great, but because it means all students have to do it whether they want to or not. But the drawback is it's made me really busy because I have to redo all of my teaching. And that's why I've been off YouTube for a while. I've been making videos for that teaching rather than making videos for YouTube. But why don't I just pop all those new teaching videos I'm making up onto the YouTube channel? Because that's what I usually do. Well, here's the problem. These new videos won't make complete sense to anyone not enrolled on the unit. Maybe they're not going to make any sense to anyone anyway, but they're not going to make so much sense to people who aren't enrolled in the unit because they're referring to assessments and tutorials that the public don't have access to. But that was the same problem I had with that PSYC 12014. And I still put those videos up on my channel. Didn't stop me then, so why is it stopping me now? Well, it's because what I'm trying to do now, more than I did before, is to make the videos incomplete. And that sounds weird, but I want to make them incomplete. And because they're incomplete, they may be frustrating for anyone who's not a student on the unit. Why am I making these videos incomplete? Is it because I'm lazy? No, it's because they're one mode of teaching on my unit. And I'm doing multimodal teaching. I'm using the pre-recorded videos, but I'm also using a prescribed text, tutorials, and a discussion forum, which is on our university's internal learning management system. Now, YouTube videos tend to offer the promise of being somewhat complete, to have a degree of completeness, that they'll tell you all that you need to know about X or Y. But I can't make those sorts of videos for teaching, because if I did one of those sorts of videos, it would make the other teaching modes redundant. Some students won't turn up to tutorials, they won't read the textbook, and they won't take part in discussion forums with other students, if they can just get all that they need from the video. And we have a massive problem in the university sector with how disengaged many students are. They don't turn up. They're not turning up for lectures. They're not turning up for tutorials. They're not reading prescribed texts. Obviously some do, but so many don't. And they're not even talking to their fellow students. Some of our students are just watching recordings of lectures and that's it. That's all they're doing. And this is a problem because those different modes of teaching are important for different reasons. The tutorials and the discussion forums are important because they are there to get students talking to other students. So they talk through the teaching materials with their classmates. And that's sort of peer-based learning, which is incredibly important because it's effective learning, but also because psychology students need to develop networks with each other, because those networks are critically important later on in their careers. The set readings are important because there's so much knowledge tied up in books and journal articles that you just can't get to in any other way. Psychology doesn't give its stuff away as freely as you might think it does. This was a frustration of the president of the American Psychological Association, George Miller, back in 1969, who implored psychologists to give psychology away and to allow the general public access to psychological knowledge that will be of benefit to them. Psychology has largely not responded well to that call at all, and psychological knowledge typically remains in the hands of psychologists, as it is the profession of psychology is increasingly sought to protect and further its own interests. You have to dig a bit, and most of that digging around involves reading. So that's why we have to get our students reading journal articles, reading textbooks and so on, and not to rely on teaching videos. So that's why I'm producing recordings that are intended to be a bit incomplete, that provide part of a jigsaw puzzle with the other pieces being delivered to students via those other modes, tutorials, readings and discussion forums. But I'm thinking, what the heck? I'll post them anyway. I've got to post something up on YouTube, and I'll post them anyway. I think I'll just put something like a little disclaimer, something like, I don't know, maybe this. Hopefully I've got around to insert a disclaimer rather than just me sitting here like an idiot quietly. So hopefully you just saw a disclaimer go up, something like that. Maybe I'll put something like that up. Yeah, that's really it. That's the reason why I haven't been putting YouTube videos up on YouTube. Oh, there's another reason actually. Progress has been a bit slow because I've decided to upgrade my own skills when it comes to video and audio, and I'm doing that through learning some new video editing software, DaVinci Resolve. Up until now, I've been using this very old version of Adobe's Creative Suite. It's like 10 years old, maybe 15 years old. It's quite old. The other thing I'm doing this year is I've decided to make my own musical intros and stingers. I haven't got any musical talent, but lack of talent has never held me back before. So I'm doing that. What I'm doing there is I'm trying to tap into an area of communication that's less about words and more about aesthetics. I've been trying to do this for ages, trying to make videos that are not just words, but images. It's time consuming, but it's actually part of this stuff about qualitative methods. Now, some people, I'll give you a route into this. Some people in the deaf community criticize those in the hearing community for being poor listeners. And that sounds odd. But they're not taking the, proverbial. What they're referring to here is that the non-deaf community hear through their ears and communicate with words. But we often hide behind those words. In the deaf world, in deaf as in a cultural group, deaf with a capital D, you communicate with your whole body. And it's such an important thing to think about, not just for psychologists, but also for qualitative researchers. What good are we if we aren't fully listening to people? And we're not fully listening to people if we're only listening to the words they say, and if the only way we communicate is through the words that we say. So I'm trying to think how, as a psychologist, I can have the skills to more fully capture the human experience. I don't hide behind words. And that means communicating with more than words. In this case, music or maybe interpretive dance. Okay, I'll leave it there because I'm getting a bit deep into this and probably a little bit unnecessary. So what I'll do, I'll post the videos I've been making for students in the new qualitative teaching I'm doing. And you don't have to watch them, but they'll be there. And I hope to see you soon. So till then, till next time, ta-da.